Hi and welcome to the BookLab. I'm Björn, and in this video I'm going to talk about my pre-planned reading list for 2025. This might be interesting to you because you are here at the BookLab, you're interested in similar books. So I wanted to share what I have planned for this year so that you maybe can get inspired and front run my reading list, or maybe you're just looking for new books, and here I have a bunch of them that I want to talk about. I'm going to go through the list and talk about why I picked these books, what the books are about. And I'm also going to present the theme of this year because it's a quite clear theme to 2025 for me when it comes to reading. This is recommendations that I've gotten out of X, Instagram, recommendations that I find inside other books and references from those. I jot all of this down in a kind of a notepad, and every year I plan about 50% of all my reading is pre-planned, and the rest is things that I just improvise throughout the year. But let's jump right into the list, and I hope you find something that you find exciting too. The theme of this year's list is how to position yourself in the age of acceleration. What do I mean with acceleration? I mean there's so much going on in technology. Society is changing fast. The kind of approach that you would have to life maybe 50, 70 years ago, that path through life might not be valid anymore because things are changing so rapidly. And I also want to understand like the grand patterns of societal change in association with human behavior. So first up on the list, I've tried to categorize them. I noticed when I went through this that the categories are not perfect, but we'll start with psychology. And on the top of that list is On Being a Person by Carl Rogers, or maybe the right title is On Becoming a Person, but it's by Carl Rogers, and it's a fundamental work in humanistic psychology. On Becoming a Person offers timeless guidance for cultivating inner peace, authenticity, and resilience. This book has been on my list for quite some time. I think one of the reasons I pushed it off is because I read mostly audiobooks at this point in my life, and this was not available in audio format, so I'm gonna get the physical copy. It's been on my list for 3 years. I heard this book been referenced in so many other of the psychology books that I read, so it feels like it's just time. And if you read it, let me know in the comments about these books. If there's something in the list that you already read, I would love to hear your thoughts about it. The second book is The Parasitic Mind: How Infectious Ideas Are Killing Common Sense by Gad Saad. And directly when I looked up this author, this book has been on my list for a while. I don't remember who recommended it, but when I started to look this guy up, I can understand that he is quite polarizing and controversial person, which actually makes me more excited about reading the book. This sharp critique of ideologies that stifle free thought is essential for understanding how cognitive and cultural parasites shape modern discourse. It equips the reader to resist conformity and embrace rationality. It kind of reminds me of another quite controversial book that I read, The Madness of Crowds by Douglas Murray. This was my first exposure to him, where he criticized some of the race, gender, and identity politics, and how ideas around these topics have become kind of an ideology of itself. I think it's The Parasitic Mind sounds like a great book. The third book is Against the Gods: The Remarkable Story of Risk. I've been much more interested in risk recently, and I actually put up a review of On the Edge by Nate Silver on the same topic last week. Risk-taking is fundamental to innovation and progress. This book traces the history of risk and probability, offering timeless lessons in how humans can manage uncertainty in a volatile world. And this ties into the topic, of course, of positioning yourself in the age of acceleration, because one of the biggest risks I feel these days is not to take any action at all. And when you're about to take bold action, then you need to be good at estimating risk, work with probabilities, and all of that. In short, it's a history of risk. On the topic I call Human Nature, we have 3 other books: Theories of Games and Economic Behavior by John van Neumann and Oscar Morgenstern. This book is a cornerstone of game theory. This text dwells into the strategies behind human decision making, laying the groundwork for understanding cooperation and competition in a complex world. Game theory is a topic that is very dear to my heart, but I felt like I haven't fully understand yet, so this is more about going deeper into understanding game theory and basically why humans behave the way they do. Secondly, Human Action, a treatise on economics by Ludwig von Mises. I had this on my list for last year that I wanted to study some more Austrian economics, and this is an Austrian economic classic. The book explores human behavior through the lens of purposeful action, providing an analytical framework for understanding social organization and economic processes. It sounds quite dry, don't you think? But reading up on the difference between Keynesian economics and Austrian classic economics is something that I want to do. I want to be able to really understand the subject. And that interest has just grown last year as I started to read more about economic systems and how economies work last year. Moving on to The Idea of the World by Bernardo Kastrup. Kastrup, that's right. This book is a bit of a wild card and it feels like it's a bit out there, which is always fun. A thought-provoking interdisciplinary argument for the mental nature of reality. This book challenges materialist assumptions and encourages you to question the very fabric of existence. So we're getting a little bit into philosophy here. It sounds like a mind bender, and I need some of these books. It's also a reason why these kind of books end up on my planned reading list, because when you pick something like this up, there's some natural resistance in me, because I feel like, oh, this would be complicated, this would be a strain, but I also know that once I take on these kind of books, it usually pays off a lot if I manage to get through them. Some of the most memorable books are the books that I felt this resistance towards, and after I finished them I was so glad that I did. History is another topic that is very interesting, and I have 3 books on that as well. How China Escaped the Poverty Trap by Yen Ang. China is a country I've been wanting to read up on for a long time. Hopefully I finally get to it. This account of China's transformation offers a nuanced view on economic development, showing how adaptability and unconventional governance sparked one of history's most remarkable turnarounds. So this is about how China turned into the economic engine it is today. Sounds interesting to me, and my brain is ready to inhale this information through my eyes. Number 2, I've actually already finished, so we can get some visuals here. Let's see. It's gonna fall over. Oh, okay. Yes, Energy and Civilization, a History. I read halfway through this last year and finished it up this year. This is just a fantastic book about energy and how humans harness and use energy and how it affects society and move society forward. It was a fantastic book. Of course, you can't judge or give all credit to society from how they use their energy, but there is definitely a link. Understanding this, how new ways to harness energy, whether it's by creating a sail for a boat, or if it's how you put fire into an engine and then you create a combustion engine. All these things impact our world in an immense measure, and it's a fascinating history to know about. Understanding how energy transforms society when new inventions arrive is kind of key also for spotting new trends in the world, because as we find new ways to harness the energy, you can kind of predict the next steps if you know the history up until now. The third book is a continuation of a project that I've been going at for several years. Actually, I'm reading The Story of Civilization by Will Durant primarily, I think. But I think Ariel, his wife, was also highly involved in this one. So I'm on book 5. I think it's The Renaissance. I'm going to continue through that series. Each book is about 1,000 pages, so it takes a while for me to get through. It's lovely on audiobook, by the way, if you just want to teleport yourself back in time. It's a great series. It's an enormous undertaking. Wilderant has set out to write about all aspects of all societies all around the earth, from the beginning of history on up until like the modern day. It's a fantastic book series, but it takes a lot of energy to go through it. Next category is social change, and the first book is The Ordeal of Change by Eric Hoffer. Hoffer's reflections on adaptation in times of upheaval provide a poignant guide for navigating personal and societal transformation in our era of acceleration. I don't know much about this book. I've read another Eric Hoffer book called... Maybe I have to look and find it. I don't remember the name. Yes! The True Believer. This is a 5 out of 5 book. If you haven't checked out the review, do it. It's about the nature of mass movements. Why do people get attracted to mass movements, to follow a powerful leader, to basically put one's own self in the back seat and let someone else make decision for you? What is the lure of totalitarianism? This book is fantastic. Check out the review if you haven't. I will link to it in the description below. So it's another book by him. I don't know much about it, but because he was the writer, I put it on the list. The next book is Soft War. It's a book that was really hard to find information about, actually. Soft War, a novel theory of power projection and the national strategic significance of Bitcoin. If you follow the channel, you know I fell down the Bitcoin rabbit hole last year, and this is kind of a continuation of that. And if you have doubts about the importance of this technology, that's fine, but it's still worth researching a little bit so everyone can make up their own mind. It's easy to be very critical when you don't know much about it. If you have read up and know how it works and have valid critique, then more power to you. The Soft War thesis presented by Jason P. Lovery relies heavily on the distinction between physical power, energy, and abstract power, belief systems. Physical power is governed by the immutable laws of physics, while abstract power is granted to a select few by way of a belief system. As society increasingly adopts and relies on cyberspace for nearly every aspect of our lives, we need a means of imposing physical controls on something that is, in its very nature, an abstraction. But how do you impose physical cost in an abstract world? Enter Bitcoin. So this is obviously very deep down that rabbit hole, but I think it will be very interesting. I have no one specific reasons for adding this to the list, except that I keep hearing about this book over and over again, and sometimes that's a signal, and sometimes it's noise. The third book is Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. Freire's revolutionary approach to education calls for a more participatory and liberating teaching model, an invaluable perspective in a rapid changing world. This book was recommended to me by someone. This is of course about education and education system. I think this ended up on the list because I just want to prepare myself for the questions and challenges that will come around my own kids' education and upbringing. And I think this could be a really nice source of wisdom for that. And the fourth book, I've already started this one, and it's really, really, really good. The Road to Serfdom by F.A. Hayek. Hayek's warning about the dangers of centralized planning is a vital political and historical lens through which to view the modern tension between freedom and control. And one of the main topics of this book is it's a critique of the planned economy, a critique of Nazi Germany and the Russian economies, and a case for why we should choose freedom instead of control. A great book. I mean, you're going to hear more about it very soon on this channel. I have... Oh, shit. There's so many books here. We have 1, 2, 3. So I have 9 more books probably. 3 different categories. And this one is Finance and Tech. Layered Money by Nick Bhatia. A deep dive into the history and evolution of monetary systems. This book provides insights into the layered architecture of modern finance and its cryptocurrency-driven future. Again, this ties into last year's rabbit hole. Very fascinating. I don't care about the Trump meme coins, the various scams around cryptocurrencies. It's not that fascinates me, is the technology, because I think it will change the world. There's a lot of noise in the space, but there's also signal. And understanding these technologies will help you better navigate as we transition from the old world, the old financial system, into the digital one. And I'm pretty sure that will happen. Number 2 is a classic book in the nonfiction community. Actually, I've seen this for 10 years, but I never picked it up. 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. A manifesto for innovation. This book challenges readers to create groundbreaking new ideas rather than improving existing systems. A crucial mindset for thriving in an age of disruption. You probably heard about this book before. Hopefully I will read it this year. Number 3 is Quantum Finance by Belay Bakik. It's so hard with authors' names. Combining physics and finance, this book introduces advanced models for understanding market dynamics, perfect for exploring the frontier of financial innovation. So more on economies and finance. I'm just interested in that right now. And this sounds like a great book. More finance. Oh yeah, the category was tech and finance. Number 4, The Creature from Jekyll Island. This eye-opening expose on the Federal Reserve and central banking raises critical questions about money, power, and economic control. If you followed last year on the BookLab, we talked a lot about inflation, quantitative easing, all of that stuff, which led me to be interested in how central banks work, why they exist, do they still need to exist, the problems with central banks, all of that. And this should be the number 1 book to kind of understand the Federal Reserve. Next category is Science and First Principles. So first book on the list is Scale by Geoffrey West. This groundbreaking exploration of universal patterns in life and society reveals how scalability shapes everything from organisms to cities to economics. Quite self-explanatory book, probably quite complex and hard to read, but I feel up for the challenge. The Pleasure of Finding Things Out by Richard Feynman. I read Feynman's book 6 Easy Pieces. It's about physics. Just a wonderful book. I don't have like a math diploma or anything, but I love just the math and physics, and he gives it in a very accessible way, or as accessible as like quantum theory can become. So I was really drawn into that book. I loved it, and here's just another book on those kinds of things, and it's a collection of Feynman's reflections on curiosity and discovery. This book inspires a joyful approach to science and critical thinking. And now towards the end, we're going to look into some classics. I don't know if you have any reading goals around classics, but I set out a goal a couple of years ago that every year I will read at least 4 books that are deemed as classics. I think the last one I read was actually Leo Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Ilyich, a book that's very short. I read it when I drove across the country to meet my parents for Christmas. It was a lovely little book, a bite-sized Tolstoy. I like that. I've been wanting to read War and Peace for the longest time, but it's just so intimidating with 120 pages. So I started with this one just to get a little bit of a taste of his works. So what's on the list? First off is Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. Let me know if you read that one. I don't know much about it myself. I got recommended it from some user on Twitter. A darkly comical critique of bureaucracy and the absurdities of war. This timeless novel is a sharp commentary on the contradictions inherent in human systems. And now you might ask, why do you want to read this, Björn? Actually, I don't know. When I pick my classics, it's often because this is a title that I've heard referenced a lot. I might as well read it so I can understand what all the fuss is about. And that's the case with Catch-22. The other one is The Wizard of Oz. Similarly, I don't even think I've seen the movie version of The Wizard of Oz. Beyond its enchanting story, this allegory for economic and social issues of the late 19th centuries continues to offer profound lessons on courage, community, and self-discovery. And for those who paid attention, notice that it's only 2 books and I should read 4. Well, I haven't planned out all the books for this year, so like this is like half of it that I aim for. I usually miss as well because I don't want to have a list that this dictates my action, so it's more of a guideline. This is kind of the direction I want to go towards, but of course I will switch out one title or another, and there will be a bunch of books that are unplanned as well, so things will change. So let me know in the comments if there are any books in this list that stood out to you that you found interesting, or maybe it's that book that you talked about the Federal Reserve. I know there's a better book than that. Then let me know as well, and I'll kind of weigh them against each other, and we'll see if I maybe switch things up on the list. I hope you're excited for your reading year. I'm super excited for 2025. It's gonna be really epic. It's a lot of these titles that I think will change the way I think, evolve how I look at the world, and open my eyes to new things, and that's why I love readings. I'll be back next week with more book reviews, probably a review of The Death of Ivan Ilyich, or maybe Energy and Civilization. I think I have 3 books that I've not reviewed yet that I finished, so there's gonna be a lot of things coming up on the channel. Until then, Björn out.